Hi, I'm Rachel Moore and I help organise the event Methven Mountain Thunder, and what you just saw hopefully has given you a taste of what the event is about if you haven't been before. I work with Methven Lions. They've employed me to help them out with the event because it's grown so big and it's a bit too much for a committee of volunteers to take on if they want to continue the event. Every year we've got about 90 riders coming to participate at the event, and there they are at the start line. So, having looked at the video clip just before, what do you think might be involved with Methven Mountain Thunder? Yeah, motorcycle racing, yeah.
Going fast.
Yeah, going fast, there's lots of noise, that's why it's called Mountain Thunder, a bit of rumble and roar there. Yeah.
I don't know, like the safety of it all and stuff?
Definitely, that's our prime concern, yeah. And it's not just safety for the cyclists either, or the competitors, it's also safety for the spectators as well. Street racing is very dangerous, and people attend the event entirely at their own risk, and we've got notices up and about that as they come in, and that is for the competitors as well as the spectators. The organisers are safety and security conscious throughout the whole planning and running of the event, and that's why it's in a closed circuit in the town centre. So we've completely fenced off the whole area that the event is being held in, as well as having the whole circuit secured as well. So there are only 6 countries in the world where motorcycle street racing is allowed. Street racing is different from other types of track meetings. You've got lots more things to consider, especially when the riders are out there. They've got roads and there's bumps, potholes and all the lights there that you don't have when you're on a track which is designed especially for track racing. Isle of Man is the most recognised circuit in the world, but we're quite lucky here in New Zealand. We've got 6, and they are the Greymouth Street Races, which are held over Labour Weekend, the Wyndham Street Races, which includes the Burt Munro Challenge in November, the Cemetery Circuit in Wanganui on Boxing Day, Port Nelson Street Races on the 2nd of January, Pyroa Street Races in February, and then there's Methven Mountain Thunder on Easter Saturday. So this year we're quite lucky to have spectators from all corners of the world. They came from the UK, the USA, and Australia, as well as all over New Zealand. The Australians came especially because they knew that the event was going to be held over Easter, and that's what they wanted to include in their itinerary. Also, a guy from England came, and he goes to the Isle of Man quite often because he lives nearby, and he thought it was one of the best events that he'd been to. At the Isle of Man, it's a 35.5 mile mountain circuit, whereas here in Methven it's on a 1 kilometre circuit, and it's really tight, and as you saw before they get up to great speeds of around 200 kilometres per hour, and they can complete a circuit in about 32 seconds. So that's starting outside the lodge, going down around the back of Mackey Street, up to the mobile service station, down the main road, past the Heritage Centre, past the 2 pubs on the corner there, and back to the lodge where the start-finish line is. It takes 2 to organise an event like that, and it's that includes the Lions Club of Methven and CAMS. and they are the Classic Action Motorcycle Sport Club, and they're based in Christchurch. So the Lions Club in Methven, they host the event. They provide the venue. There's a project convener who's appointed from Methven Lions, and they put together a committee. This last year they had 12 people on the committee, and on top of that there's the event coordinator. And we help organise things such as the sponsorship, the promotion of the event, the program. So everybody gets one of these, well, as a couple when they come through the door, or the gate into the event, and it's got all the riders, the sponsors for those rides, the layout of the circuit, when crossings are going to happen, and the likes like that. We also organise the road closures and coordinate the various organisations that assist with helping out on the day. In total there are over 220 volunteers, so it's quite a big event to organise. CAMS, they organise the races and the riders. So they put out that they're going to be holding this event and calling for riders who are wanting to participate in it. Like I said, they get about 90 riders each year. There are 7 different classes of bikes that are involved, and there's quite a lot that goes on involving all the marshals and all the coordination with Motorcycling New Zealand. We have to keep the safety standards up, as well as make sure that the circuit is put out the way that it's meant to, and the likes. So here are some quick facts. Methven Mountain Thunder is held on Easter Saturday. The first event was in 2010, so all going well, 2014 will be the 5th one for Methven. It really is a community event. Like I said, it involves around 220 volunteers. They're going around the 1 kilometre circuit, which is right in the centre of town. If you go up to Nelson, it's out in the port, and people can just bypass it and not even know that it's happening, whereas here in Methven, it's in the centre of town. Bikes, like I said, get up to 200 k's per hour. 7 classes of bikes, which range from the classics. There are bikes that were from 1923, 1924, right up to Formula 1 bikes, which are the hard, fast ones of today. The riders aged from 15, which was Bailey Puritan from Ashburton last year when he competed. Obviously he was only 14 and can't even have a car driver's licence, but he's out there racing on the track. And the oldest one is Brian O'Hara, a local Methven guy who's 79 years old. He only took up riding about 15 years ago as a hobby to do in his retirement. The event goes on regardless of the weather. The last one that was held at Greymouth, they said that the rain was pounding off the tar seal by a good foot when they started, but at the end of the day it had dried up. And there are no animals allowed, and there are no patches allowed. Animals, that's for their safety as well as the riders. Obviously it's really loud, and that could affect some of the animals, and if they got onto the track, that could be fatal not only for the animal but for the riders out on the track too. No patches. Obviously motorcycling attracts lots of people from like gangs and the like, so we don't want to have rival gangs in there and causing lots of problems and with the police and intimidating the spectators who are there because they're mostly family people. You got any questions from that so far? Initially the event was only going to be held every second year, but it's now held annually to keep the momentum of the event going and to be part of the street racing calendar. Some of the classes are Formula One, which is the big fast ones. This year they had Formula Cams, which was 150 and 250cc bikes. Buckets, those are bikes that are put together from a bucket of bolts and different bits and pieces that have been lying around people's garages and the likes. Pre-63, pre-72, pre-82 and pre-89 motorcycles as well. And there we've got Brian O'Hara, who's the eldest competitor, and Scout Fletcher, she is the second youngest and one of 2 to 3 competitors. She's from Lincoln. She's doing really well in the motorcycling world and getting within the top 3 of her races throughout New Zealand. And Brian goes out to have fun. He thought he might have been winning one of the races this time, but he managed to get his front wheel stuck in, or wedged in between a couple of bales, so he just pulled it back out and kept on going, but he was alright. As far as planning the whole event goes, it starts in August. So that's when the project team leader appoints the committee, like I said before. And then we have a talk with CAMS and come to an agreement with what we're going to be focusing on this year and understanding each other's roles. One of our particular focuses this year, other than safety, which is always the prime one, was also the number of crossings that we could have to get spectators across the track, because when they arrive they're on the outside of the track, but they can cross into the centre of the track, which is where the Heritage Centre and the Blue Pub is, and they can get in and have a walk around the pits and have a look at the different motorcycles and check up with the riders and the competitors, have a look, see how everything's going. But we wanted to make sure that people could get across frequently, because sometimes there can be quite a long wait, and there's the call for an overhead bridge to be put in. Looking at the cost of that, which is around $20,000, where to store it, how to put it together and have it there in a safe environment when we've only got permission for the roads to be closed between 6 AM and 6 PM is a big issue. So we're just going to go with continuing having frequent crossings. The next thing to look at is all the legal requirements. We've got to get road closures first of all from the council. We need to have a Motorcycling New Zealand permit, and that includes putting together safety plans, who's going to be where and when, how many ambulances there are, how many doctors there are, how many paramedics, is the fire brigade there, are they able to help out with bits and pieces there as well. So we need to get in contact with all those emergency services. So there's the fire, Methven Fire Brigade here, St John's, they get involved. Last year they were quite lucky, and all their role took was applying sunscreen. This year, yes, they were also applying sunscreen, but it was such fantastic conditions that the riders really gunned themselves out there and had a few spills on the way. So St John's are definitely needed there. The medical centre is involved. They have to have 2 doctors on hand. The medical centre uses this day as an opportunity to have the flu clinic as well, so they're not just open just for Methven Mountain Thunder. And we also have the police there to help with crowd control. So all of those guys do it pretty much voluntarily, other than the police, that's part of their role. Then we're into sponsorship. We have 5 different levels of sponsors, and that includes the principal sponsor, the sponsor for the circuit itself, sponsors for the races, there were 7 different classes there, sponsors for the different corners around the circuit, and also ones for the crossings. So in return for their sponsorship, they get their logos included on posters that go all around New Zealand, particularly in Canterbury, but we do get them out all the way up to Kaitaia, to Bluff. These are sent out to all the different motorcycling clubs in New Zealand, and we're looking at over 300 motorcycling clubs, so that's quite a big database to put together, putting them in the eyesights, fish and chip shops and the likes, as well as motorcycling shops. They also get to have an ad in the program alongside what they are sponsoring. So for example, R&R Haulage, they sponsored the pre-82 race, so there's the advert, there's the list of all the riders, and they get a mention on the loudspeaker throughout the day. They have 3 to 4 rounds of races, and each race is 6 times around the circuit. So other promotions that we do are articles in newspapers. We've got our own website, which you saw the piece from the YouTube. Facebook, we have signs, posters, radio as well. Next thing to look at is the program. Designing it, getting all the ads together. I know you give people deadlines, it's probably about like homework and assignments, but you always have to remind people and chase them up, and a month later hopefully we've got it all together ready for the printing of it. I also organise the stall holders, and we do this as a way for local organisations and community groups to do fundraising themselves, so they don't have to come to Methven Lions all the time asking for a handout. It gives them an opportunity to help themselves. There are also other food stalls, and we try to have some knick-knack stalls there to cater for the whole family, especially the ladies. And obviously there's bike-orientated stalls as well, and this year the Triumph shop from Christchurch came along and actually had bikes on the outside of the closed area, so that people could take the bikes for a ride and trial them out, see if they wanted to buy them, and that went really well. We also have to work with the residents, because there are people who live within and around the circuit, so we had to let them know that the event is coming up. When we applied for the permits from the council, everybody in the community was given the opportunity to put in any objections and the likes. So we need to work closely with the residents to make sure that they are happy, and also the workers who are inside and surrounding the event. There are people who are working in the hotels doing the cleaning, in the eyesight who are running things for the day, as well as the pubs, PGG Wrightsons and the likes. They all need to have access.
Were there any objectives?
No, we've never received any, which we're quite fortunate about, and I thought that the residents would be a bit up in arms and think it's a bit loud and how do you do that around there, but they actually set up their own barbecue and picnic areas, and have scaffolding and the likes all set up so that they can see the event from their own backyard and be part of it, and invite all their friends around and all that sort of stuff, because we give them free entry tickets so that they are part of the event. Next is working with the riders, making sure that they are in the right class of event, making sure that the pits are all set up so that they're all happy, have everything that they need. For example, the Formula 1 bikes, they need to have tie warmers to make sure that their bikes are all hot and ready to go when they get out there. having a commentator and having all the loudspeakers set up for them, having a place for them to organise the prize giving. That's something that CAMS do, and by holding the prize giving, we're actually getting people to stay an extra night in Methven, so obviously they're spending more money here in our local community. The riders come from as far as Invercargill and all the way up to Nelson. And one of the most important things we need to do is look after our circuit, so we go around it many times and make sure that there are no lumps and bumps that shouldn't be there, try and get the council in to fix everything up that needs to be done. We need to set it up, and that involves quite a bit. There's netting and fences to be put up all around the perimeter. There are big hay bales to be put out there. I think we use about 600 hay bales. And to do that, we have assistance from the local community, from volunteer groups such as the Rugby Club. This year Young Enterprise Scheme got involved, the Scouts and the like, so they come and help us set everything up, and then other groups can also help us with the clean up. We also need to have marshals there to make sure that all the corners are looking right, and they put the flags out to say if people need to slow down or there's been an accident and you need to stop, and the likes too. That's also important for the spectators and the whole safety of the event, because we want to have a relaxed family outing for people with plenty of rumble and roar to enjoy at our unique event here in Methven. Any further questions about that? I'm doing lots of talking. So the principal sponsor this year was Ride Forever, and they are a motorcycle program run by ACC. They don't promote that it's ACC because they feel that people have an anti-mentality towards ACC, but being Ride Forever, they're more approachable to the riders and the general public. They aim to reduce motorcycle-related injuries by influencing and providing the right information and tools to motorcyclists, so that they have better skills and knowledge through the training and are able to get out there and ride another day. One of the things that they do, which works really well, is having 8-hour courses for $50, which is pretty good for anybody who's wanting to learn to ride right through to the experienced. The circuit sponsor for the last few years has been Springland Motorcycles. You might know them, they're about halfway between here and Ashburton, and they have all types of motorcycles as well as four-wheelers for out on the farm, and they also have a museum there which is open on Saturdays, and they've got the most fantastic, amazing bikes, ones that they found from the 1920s that were in a dump, and they've restored right through to Yamahas, Suzuki's and Hondas, mostly from the 60s and 70s. Well worth going to. So, I understand you guys have to look at the impacts of an event and how it would impact the community on a social level. What sort of things are we looking for on a social level for impacts?
Would it bring tourism in?
Definitely, yeah. So we've got around 3,000 spectators. They come for the event, and obviously they're spending money while they're here. Yep.
Any environmental?
Yeah, sure. The main two environmental factors are the noise and straw. The noise is at the time and on the day. The other part with being the straw is that we set it up, we take it away, but we also need to clean it up so it looks like nothing has happened between 6 AM and 6 PM that day, and no straw is going to be clogging up the drains or anything like that after the event. Other social things that I could think of was that it does have an impact on the local residents, like I said before, and I thought they would be running away, but no, they're actually out there enjoying the event, making the most of it, having their mates around and having good barbecue and the likes. Got the local businesses and their workers. They're having to work on Easter Saturday. We've got over 220 volunteers, like I've said before, and they come from local community organisations right through to other motorcycle clubs, and obviously the Lions. They're giving up their Easter. It gives organisations such as the golf club, the schools, the opportunity to do some of their own fundraising without asking for a handout. And it also gives Lions the ability to donate funds to the local community. So as you can see there are lots of people. Most of them come from out of mid-Canterbury, and it's a good way of showing off what we've got here and give people a reason to return at another time. What about economic impacts? How do you think the event would impact on Methven?
The income that it generates for the community by the increased tourism and people coming into the area?
Yeah, definitely. And who can remember 4 years ago what Easter was like here in Methven? Pretty dull. Most people went away with their families. And yeah, it was a very quiet time. There was nothing as far as the businesses went. Most people bypass Methven. Methven is seen as a winter destination as far as tourism goes. But we estimate that the event contributes $150,000 to the local community for this one-day event. And that will be brought in by people in the accommodation area, restaurants. Obviously we've got the 2 pubs plus the lodge right there in the circuit. There's cafes, supermarkets. Supermarkets this year had the best Easter Saturday ever. And then organisations such as the Red Cross, they opened their doors and they sold over $400 worth of product. And if you think most of these things go for $1, $2 and $5, $400 to sell in one day is huge for them. Clubs such as the Golden Oldie Hockey Club, who've got a big tournament this weekend, they had their own stall there selling food and the likes, and they turned over around $2,000, which is extra bonus income for them. St John's are out there getting good practice of their skills, well hopefully not. And the stall holders that were there, quite a few of them sold out of their product. Many of them were meant to be going to the Fairlie show the next day but didn't have any chips left. Spit roast, they couldn't keep up with the demand, so it's pretty good.
So they'll want to come back?
Yes, they do. And for the first time this year, a country fair was run by the Vintage Club here in Methven, and that was over the whole of the Easter weekend, but they wanted to do that to get on the back of Methven Mountain Thunder, and it worked well because it's a close relationship between the classic bikes and the vintage ones and the likes that they've got there too. So like I said before, as far as the environment goes, it pretty much, well, as far as I could pick out, was noise and straw. Can you guys think of any other environmental issues that there might be from hosting such an event?
Would there be stress on the road?
Yes, there is. Mainly within the pit area. The road itself, like I said, we have to make sure that it is up to the standard that Motorcycling New Zealand will give us a permit for. We have to make sure that the road is all fit and ready to go. We need to weld down all the covers, like for the manholes and the like that are around the track, and we need to make sure that that's all taken off at the end of the event as well. So as far as that goes, yeah, there's quite a bit to do too. Yeah.
So when the first, the initial one was held, were the council very concerned about that as a sort of unknown? Because presumably they have quite a lot of responsibility around the roads.
Yeah, they do. And we have to also put together a whole road plan, and we have to have organisations such as Spray Marks, Fulton Hogan on board with us too. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved with the first one. I've only been part of it for the last 2 years, so I'm not too sure what issues they might have come up with.
Whether it was difficult
at
or
that
not
stage.
to get it going.
Yeah. Right, so we'll look at some quick numbers here. It's been running for 4 years now, and everything going well. We'll be having our 5th one Easter Saturday 2014. Brings around 3,000 spectators into the area. 71% of those are out of Mid-Canterbury. You've got 80 riders on about 118 bikes. So some riders obviously riding different bikes in different classes of races. It generates about $150,000 into the local community. Some of that is taken through the gate takings, which are then distributed immediately back out into the local community. So this year is around $10,000 that went straight back out to local groups that helped us with the setup and clean up of the event. And they all get in on all different levels. So as you can see there, we've got the fire brigade helping out a guy who's fallen off his bike, along with the Motorcycling New Zealand marshal making a report on what has happened and why there might have been an accident, make sure the guy's all right, and the likes. The police are quite good. One of the guys comes along on his motorcycle. There are only 16 policemen in New Zealand that ride on a motorcycle, and he gets out there and takes them for their warm-up laps. So when we look at the type of people who come in, we run a survey. This is the results from the 2012 surveys. We haven't completed the ones from 2013 yet. But as you can see, most of the people who attend are over 40 years old. And they're male, predominantly. So that's 63% male there. And like I said, 71% of them come from out of Mid-Canterbury. Most of them actually come from the Greater Christchurch area, which is from Banks Peninsula up to Oxford and the likes, Radiora.
Is it 30%?
That's 39% for Greater Christchurch. So, yeah, just running that through that. The blue is 39% for Greater Christchurch. This one down here is Mid-Canterbury at 29%, and going around you've got 11% from Central Canterbury, 9% from South Canterbury, 4% from Otago, 4% from North Canterbury, 3% from Southland, and 1% other. And looking at the type of people who come along, and you think of your motorcycle groupies and the likes, believe it or not, most of them are business owners or managers, or quite high up there in their field, mechanics, engineers, agriculture, education, and then you've got the builders, retired people, and people involved with administration, all the way through to nurses, mums, pilots, and musicians. And they found out about the event mostly through word of mouth actually. As you'll find with most events, word of mouth works really well. And then the newspaper, signs, people were given tickets from work and the likes as well. And most people came along because they had a bike interest, or it was a really good day and they wanted to get out and do something different. And we thought that their ratings were pretty good too. Out of 10 being the best, 1 the worst, all rated within 7 to 10, which for the third event we thought was pretty good. And 98% of them said that they would come back again. So here, one of the questions that you guys were asking is, why Methven? Well, this event was held in Rakaia in the earlier 2000s, and I think they had 2 or 3 goes in Rakaia, but it didn't end well due to safety issues, being able to control the public there and access to the circuit. And then good old Brian O'Hara, he's a member of CAMS, and he is also a member of Methven Lions, and CAMS were looking for a new venue, something else to add into their meetings, because they mostly just track meetings, we go round and round in circles. So he was like, well, you know, we've got Methven here, and they decided to have a go here in Methven. It's a nice tight 1K circuit that they all seem to really enjoy, and they Scout Fletcher thought it was the best circuit that she had been on with her bucket bike. As far as costs for the event go, the success of the event is heavily weather reliant. If the weather's not good, spectators are not going to come. It puts issues up there for the riders. To cover our costs, we raise sponsorship and apply for grants. Last year we were quite lucky and received 2 grants, one from the Lion Foundation and one from Tourism Ashburton. Sorry, Experience Mid-Canterbury they are now. But this year we weren't successful with any grants. When it comes to Experience Mid-Canterbury, they will give an event 3 years worth of support financially, and then they hope that the event is able to stand on its own 2 feet. Sponsorship, because we didn't raise any grants this year, we went all out very hard and raised about $17,000 worth, which includes people who are just putting an ad into the program as well. And there's also the entry fees. There's the entry fees for the riders, and I think it's somewhere between $80 and $120 that they pay. Then when people come to watch the event, they come through the gate and they pay an entry fee as well. Last year it was $10. This year we increased it to $15. And children 12 and under are free, which sort of goes alongside Mount Hutt marketing, which is 10 and under are free. Any other questions?
That's good.
The other thing we do is produce t-shirts, and every year we try to have a different colour, but of course the Baihees like their black and they like their white t-shirts, so we've always got black, we've always got white, and then we've got one other option. 2012 was the blue, and this year it was military green. And we thought, with a bit of research, that having a small logo there would people would want to wear it more often, and they could wear it under their jackets and the likes. But no, on the day they were like, "God, why don't you have something bigger there so we can get out there and show what we've been involved with?" So everybody's different.
Right, questions, Alex?
What are your major limitations having it at Methven?
Oh, such a good question. The support pretty much of the community and Lions. For Lions, you know, there's a committee of 12 people it was this year, and they have to attend regular meetings and put quite a bit in behind it. And there are 79 Lions Club members, and 57 of them came along on the day, plus 7 of their wives helped out as well. So they're giving up their Easter, and for most families that's an opportunity to get away, whereas yeah, they're giving it up, and it's 4 years running now. Do they want to do it for another year? Yes, they do, but we might have to at some stage look at the greater Lions community and not be so dependent on Methven Lions when it comes to work on the day. We also need to have the support of an organisation such as CAMS, who can run the races and organise the riders, because there's quite a bit of scrutiny that goes on there, and they all need to be compliant with Motorcycling New Zealand. Yeah.
Is there any prize money or anything like that for the riders who win?
No.
It's just...
We had brought that up and asked CAMS, you know, is that one way that we can support the riders and the likes, but they have decided not to have prize money because they feel that with having prize money the riders would go harder and there'd be accidents, and they don't want to have any safety issues, broken bones and the likes. Yeah. Yes.
How is a dangerous event like that justified? I mean, you know, you say that there's only very few amount of events in the country. How would an event like that be justified and sort of looking forward?
Yeah. Well, the New Zealand is unique in that it is adding street races to the calendar, and Methven was the last one that was brought on, and they justify that because it is one, it's a unique event, and that the riders are looking for something different in their area, and that is a great spectator sport, but it all has to be up to speed as far as safety goes. Very, very tough on the safety. Yeah.
Anyone else got any other questions? I think you've explained everything very well and very thoroughly, hasn't she? And some of that was because you thought of some good questions that I sent through to Rachel, so she knew what you were looking for, so I think that's been really helpful too.
I just thought of another environmental impact. It's not a huge one, but obviously it's, the circuit is part of the main street, and we need to have all our signs up and everything, letting people know that the event is ahead and need to go and take a detour and that sort of things. But that does affect milk tanker drivers who are going through in the early hours of the morning, and we need to let them know that it's happening and where they can go to detour.
So that's, yeah, a sort of temporary change to the whole environment with the detour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which we might think, oh, it's not really much, but if you're a milk tanker driver and you're really busy.
Yeah. Because especially if you're coming up Lion Road or Methven Chertsey Road, and there's no other way to get into Methven from there. They take big detours. So we let them know that the event's happening, give them a map of the area, where the circuit is, and the likes too.
There's quite a lot of liaison and communicating with other people who could be affected by the event.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. No other questions? getting close to time anyway, so
Yeah.
it's pretty perfect.
Managed to fill that out. Wow.
That's really good.
Okay.
Alright,